Cisco Certified Network Associate Day 14. Welcome back everybody, I'm Imran Rafa, your trainer for this entire series. Today we're going to talk about VTP, VTP pruning and the native VLAN. But before we go any further, I would request all of you to go to our Facebook page, that is Networking Consultant, and please like it. Also, do not forget to invite all your friends to it who you think would benefit from these free videos. Also, please go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to that. Whenever we add new videos, you will get notified. We have a lot of plans for this channel. We would be having many more series that would follow once we complete this CCNA routing and switching. So without wasting much time, let's get straight into today's class. Today we would be discussing three topics: VTP, that is VLAN trunking protocol, VTP pruning, and the native VLAN. So we have discussed VTP in one of our earlier videos, that is VLAN trunking protocols. But like I have told you, whenever you hear VTP or VLAN trunking protocol, the first thing that should come to your mind is VTP is not a trunking protocol, right? So VLAN trunking protocol is not a trunking protocol. Like we discussed many times before, there are two popular trunking protocols, that is ISL, which is a Cisco proprietary one, which is no longer being used, and then we have the IEEE standard, the 802.1q, which is what is being used by all the device manufacturers today to encapsulate trunking traffic, right? So even in Cisco switches, we use 802.1q as the trunking or the encapsulation for trunk traffics. But VTP, like we discussed, is a VLAN syncing protocol, which makes sure that the VLAN database is in sync with all the switches in the network, right? So we discussed how we have different modes for VTP. We have VTP server mode, client mode, and the transparent mode. When a device is in VTP server mode, that's the device where you can actually make changes like adding or deleting VLANs. A VTP client will not be able to directly configure. You will have to configure VLAN database from the VTP server, and that will replicate to all the VTP clients. And VTP mode transparent, like we said, is a mode where they don't participate in VTP advertisement. So they take the advertisement, they don't apply it to their VLAN database, they just forward it. So they're more like a relay, right? So that is the closest to putting VTP off. So there's nothing called VTP disable. VTP disable is like making the VTP device as VTP transparent, right? So let's look at what VTP configurations we can look. So like always, let's get into packet tracer. Right, this is packet tracer, and we continue from where we left in our last video. So just to revise, we configured VLAN 10 here and VLAN 10 here. We configured VLAN 20 here and VLAN 20 here. So this is switch 0, switch 1, and switch 2. From switch 2, from switch 1 to switch 0, VLAN 20 communication happens. Similarly, from switch 2 to switch 0, VLAN 10 communication happens because we added VLAN 10 in this device here, right? So let's first go and enable VTP. So let's start randomly, let's choose one of these devices as a VTP server. So let's start with switch 0. Let's make this as the VTP server, right? By default, right? You need to remember this. By default, all the switches are VTP server. So let's start with this. Let's say VTP status. Right, sorry. It is show VTP status. Okay. And you see that the VTP version that is running by default is VTP version 2. Configuration revision is 4. Remember what we discussed when we discussed VTP theory, that every time you make a change to the VTP database, the revision number gets incremented, right? So in this case, the revision number has reached revision 4. Maximum VLAN supported by this is 255, right? It depends on the switch. So Cisco Packet Tracer is simulating a switch. I think it is 2960, so it has 255. But then there are a lot of devices with varying maximum values of VLAN that is supported. Existing VLANs, it says it has 7 existing VLANs. We'll have a look at what are those VLANs in a minute. But for the moment, there are 7 VLANs. VTP operating mode, it says, is server. VTP domain is null. There's nothing, no value configured there. VTP pruning mode, it's disabled. We'll come back to this a little while later. VTP v2 mode is disabled. Trap generation disabled, and MD5 digest. Okay, right. So we from your Cisco CCNA 200/120 syllabus, we would be looking at mode, version number, domain name, and pruning, right? We'll not look at other things at the moment, so don't worry about it. So let's look at the VLAN database. So show VLAN, right? And like we saw in our last video, we have 4 unsupported VLANs, and then we have 3 VLANs that we created. That is VLAN 1 default VLAN, then VLAN 10 sales, and VLAN 20 marketing, right? So similarly, let's look at all the other devices. We go here and put the same command, show VTP status. Again, it's the same thing. You can see that configuration revision here is 3, right? We will see why it is 3. And this is server, and everything else is same. So show VLAN, and we have 1, 2, 3. So we made changes. So if I'm sure we made, see, like I said, every time we add or delete VLANs, the revision increment goes high. Now I think here it was 1, we created 1, 2, 3, so that's why it's gone to 3. We made 2 changes there, so it's gone to 3. But I think in switch 0 we must have made 3 changes. That's why it's gone to 4, right? So let's also look at switch 2. So it's the same thing. Enable show VTP status, and here revision is 1, right? And that's strange. That's strange. It should have been 2 because we made 1 change here. Show VLAN, right? So we made this 1 change here. I don't know why that is not updated, but yeah, so basically this is how it works. I mean, this is a simulator. At the end of the day, a simulator is a simulator. There's so many bugs that's definitely going to be there part of simulator, and that's why I like working on real devices. You know, if you have an opportunity to access real devices for your Cisco practice, I would suggest work on real devices because it's going to really help you. The next best thing, if not for real devices, would be GNS3, because that's an emulator. What it does is it takes a real operating system from a device, a router, and it runs those on that emulator. So basically whatever command is there in that operating system will definitely be able to, you would be able to make use of that in the emulator. So that's the difference between a simulator and an emulator. The simulator is a program. Somebody's programmed it to look like a router. They're not a real router. An emulator is actually emulating the device, the hardware, but the software is what it runs on a real device, right? And of course, if you can't get access to a Cisco iOS, the next best thing you can do is Cisco Packet Tracer or any of those simulators that is available in the market. Right, so what we will do is we will make this switch 0 as the VTP server. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go in to global configuration mode. I'm going to say VTP version 2. Right? This is how you change the VTP version. Like I said, by default, VTP version of all the switches is going to be VTP version 2. Right? So If you want to change, this is how we change. We say VTP version and you give a number, 1 or 2. In this case, we want it to be 2, so we give VTP version 2. The next one is VTP mode. And here you can give options like server, client, and transparent. So in this case, we are going to make it VTP server, right? So it says the device mode is already VTP server, which is fine. We know that it's already in server. And the next thing we need to do is VTP domain. We need to set a VTP domain, right? So we say VTP domain nwking.org. Why do you need VTP domain? So if you remember from our theory, we said that if at all there is another device that is with a higher revision number which comes into the network, all the devices will start replicating the VLAN database from that device which has a higher revision number. Now, it will do it only if the domain name matches. So what we would generally do is put a domain that is relevant to your company. Let's say you're working for networking, it would be networking.org. Or if you're working for Cisco, you might say cisco.com, right? So some domain, right, that is there to mark your device or your company devices different from a device that could be picked up from somewhere, right? So you give a domain name which would make sense, and also that would make you part of that network, right? So you just say nwking.org, right? I've just made that as the domain. So now VTP, that's how you set the VTP domain name. And the next thing that we can do is a VTP password. So if we don't give a password, now anybody, let's say if there is some hacker in the network, one of your staff turns bad and he says he wants to hack your network. Now if you don't give a password, he could just get a rogue device, a switch with a higher revision number with the same domain name as yours, and plug it into the network, and your network will copy all the configuration from his VTP advertisements. To prevent that, you can give a password. So I can say VTP password Cisco, right? Now VTP password has been set to Cisco, and this will replicate only if the password matches. So if you get a VTP advertisement without the password, or maybe with a wrong password, it is not going to update the VLAN database. So that's a protection you have. So we have done what you have to do here. Now what we will do is we will create few more VLANs here. So I will say config terminal VLAN 200, let's say name test exit, VLAN 500, name test 2, or rather test 1. Oh, sorry, I need to get the name together. Test 1 exit, right? So I've just created a couple of VLANs, so I can say show VLAN, and I will see that these VLANs are here. We don't have any devices or any ports configured to those VLANs, but that's fine, right? All right, now let's go to switch 1, and let's say same thing, show VTP status, and we see that networking, the domain name has changed, but nothing else has changed. Existing VLANs were 9 in switch 0, everything else is the same, but the domain name has come, but nothing else has been updated. Now the reason that's not updated is because the password has not matched. Now remember, we made a domain name changes. By that time it replicated the domain name to all the switches that's connected, but then our VTP advertisement started coming with password, so we don't have the password match. So let's match the password here. Configure terminal VTP password Cisco, right? So we have set the VLAN database password to Cisco. So let's see now if this gets replicated. Show VTP status, and you will see that the existing VLANs automatically got incremented to 9 and everything is same. So this show VLAN, this VLAN database will have those new test and test 1 here automatically because we just received that. So the same, it's going to be the same case here. Switch to, if we go show VLAN, it's going to be the old one. But if I say show VTP status, it's the same thing. The domain name has been set, but the VLAN database has not been copied over. And the reason being, after we set the domain name, we changed the password, and the advertisement that's coming now is not matching, and hence it cannot make changes. So what we have to do is we have to set the VTP password. So VTP password is Cisco, and now it's you can see VTP status. It will tell it has updated the VLAN to what it is required. So this is what VTP is. VTP is such a beautiful thing that you don't have to make any changes. Automatically the VLAN database gets updated. So when I say show VLAN, now here also we have those two new VLANs, 200 and 500 that we created earlier. It has been replicated. Now if we have 200 devices that's connected, we would have this information updated on all 200 devices. Now another thing we need to do is we need to make sure that switch 2 is also client. So let's not so we'll go here, we'll say config terminal VTP mode client, right? So only the first one, switch 0 is server, these are all client. Now if I go to this client, so let's say this is in client mode, and I say VLAN 1000, what it says VTP VLAN configuration not allowed when the device is in client mode. So I cannot make any changes to the VLAN database in a client. Whatever change that I need to make, I will have to go to the server. I come here and I say config terminal VLAN 999 and name Imran, exit, and that information would be here. So when I say show VLAN, I have a new VLAN 999 Imran, but when I go to these devices, that will also have the same VLAN information. The one you see here, 999 Imran, it has been replicated. So like I said, VTP is a brilliant piece of software, but then it also has the potential to destroy your network completely. If you had a hacker among you in your computer, in your office, and if he wanted to bring the network down, it would have been very easy if the domain name was not set and if the password was not set. All he had to do was take a wire, plug into the switch port on the wall socket, plug in his switch, right? Because of DTP, they will negotiate a trunk. Once the trunk is formed, VTP, he would get all the advertisement to his device, and if he wanted to hack, he would have got his switch ready with a lot of VLANs, which is not part of your computer network, right? He would have VLANs like 999 or 100 or 200, 500, whatever, which is not part of your thing, and he would delete all your critical VLANs like VLAN 10, VLAN 20, plug it onto the network, and if his device, right, a hacker knows what he is doing, he would make sure his revision number is much higher than your revision number in your office, and the minute he plugs in his switch, VTP would synchronize all the VLAN database with the one that is there in his malicious switch, and your network will all come down, because once your VLAN table is deleted, the commands that you have, like for in this case, this port, it says it's switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 10, right? And these ports say switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 20, right? Now if these devices, right, if a port is hard coded with a certain VLAN number, and if the VLAN database does not have that VLAN, right, if the VLAN database, VLAN 20 and VLAN 10 has been deleted from your VLAN database, the switch will automatically place those ports which is configured with a VLAN number in a down state. So basically your network will come down, because all the ports in a real switch would be configured to a certain VLAN, and because that VLAN that is configured in that port is not there in the VLAN database, the switch will put those ports down and your network will come down. Now how do we prevent? One is VTP advertisements. We will put a domain name and a password. Another way is switch port security. Now that's a topic that we will be coming into in a while. Maybe another few videos away we will get into switch port security. Now switch port security is a brilliant topic, and I'm sure you guys would really love it. It's how you make sure you automatically put the port down. You will look at the violations that's happening. If somebody's changing the MAC address, like you can configure a certain ports on your switch to be part of a certain MAC address. If somebody changes that MAC address, puts another device, immediately that port would go down. Now, those are all security things that we would be learning very, very, very soon. But for now, this is how you make sure VTP is secure. Right. So the next topic, so these are the things. So VTP configuration, VTP version number 1 or 2, VTP mode, server client, or transparent. Like I said, if you put it in transparent mode, it is not going to update its own VLAN database, but it is going to pass those advertisements to the neighboring devices. VTP domain name, set a domain name. VTP password, just have to put a password. Next, we talk about VTP pruning. Right. So when you see this diagram, we see that all the three devices have the same VLAN database. That means VLAN 10 and 20 is part of all the three switches. But technically, if you look at it, switch 2 does not need VLAN 20 because it doesn't have any port that's part of VLANs, right? But traffic would nevertheless, whether it has those VLANs or not, all the VLAN 20 traffic will traverse this switch, and it will be passed on to this switch, and this switch will get VLAN 20 traffic. Is that required? As a network engineer, your task number 1 is to make sure less data is transferred through the network. That means what is critical has to go, but what is not required, like in this case, VLAN 20 traffic, we have to make sure those traffic is prevented from going through this trunk link when it is not required to go there, right? So VLAN 20 has to come here, but it should not go beyond this because there is no VLAN 20 in the switch. How do we do that? We can do that by enabling VTP pruning. How do we do that? We have to go to the server. Again, like I said, VTP configuration can only be done in VTP server. So we come to VTP, the server, go to the global config mode and say VTP pruning. Now, again, like I said, this is a simulator, right? So Packet Tracer does not have this command here, but when you put VTP pruning and hit enter, you would get a command saying enabling VTP pruning. And then when you go to show VTP status, you will have this saying enable. It's a VTP pruning mode enabled, and you will have VTP pruning enabled on the entire domain. That means all the three switches will have VTP pruning enabled. Now, what is VTP pruning? We discussed what we have discussed this earlier, but let me try to redefine the explanation, tell you exactly how it applies to this setup. So when we enable VTP pruning, VTP, right, the advertisements are sent across the devices, and this device would tell this device that it only has VLAN 10 configured in its ports, right? So it has 3 ports in VLAN 10. So it would tell the device here that I don't need anything at the moment. I only need VTP 10 traffic. So this switch now has information because of VTP pruning that it need not send VTP 20 traffic beyond this, right? So that's a beautiful way. You don't have to do as an administrator, you just have to give that one command, and the switches are so intelligent that it will make sure it sends what is required. So tomorrow, let's say you get another sales department here, and then you add a computer here with VLAN 20, immediately the switch will tell switch 1, switch 2 will tell switch 1 that, okay, now I have VLAN 20 and VLAN 10 part of my ports, so please send me traffic for 20 and 10. So it constantly updates each other, and they make your network more efficient. Now that's one way of doing it. There is another way of doing it, that is by using a command called VTP allowed VLAN. So let's look into this. So I go into here. I go in here, interface. Let's look into this. this is FA0/4, right? So I'm going into FA0/4 interface, FA0/4 switch port trunk, right? And I have this command called allowed VLAN, right? So I can go in here and I can say, because I know, like in this configuration, I already know that this switch 2 has only VLAN 10. So I can say switch port trunk allowed VLAN 10, right? What did it do? Now I have hard coded this trunk to send traffic for only VLAN 10. That means it will not send any other traffic, VLAN 20, VLAN 1, nothing. So it will not send traffic for anything else, VLAN 20, VLAN 30, VLAN 200, 900, whatever. Only VLAN 10 traffic will actually pass through this trunk, because this port I have asked it to send only VLAN 10 traffic. So the question is this: what is better, VTP pruning or VLAN allowed method? Now that's a very subjective question, because there are times when VTP pruning is your best solution, but there are also times when VLAN allowed VLAN could be a very, very good solution. So basically, as an administrator, it's a decision that you must make. What is good? So let's say if there is a server and you know that this server is going to be only part of this VLAN, then you can manually hard code it to be VLAN allowed VLAN 10, right? In that case, even if let's say somebody gets another device and he makes sure that he gets access to the switch and he configures a certain port in VLAN 20, he plugs it in, he still does not get traffic for VLAN 20 because you've manually hard coded it here saying it's not going to happen. So it could be good, but sometimes it could be bad. So if you have VLAN pruning, then automatically VLAN 20 traffic would start to go to switch 2, because now VLAN 20 traffic is also required for switch 2. So this is the difference between manually saying VLAN allowed and doing an automatic command like VTP pruning. All right, so configurations like we discussed, switch port, when you're in global config, VTP pruning, that's an automatic way. But if you want to manually allow VLAN, so you can go into switch port mode trunk, so whichever is your trunk interface, right? You can go into that interface and then say switch port trunk allowed VLAN. So you can say allowed VLAN, you can use all, the keyword all. When you say all, that means every VLAN is allowed. When you say none, that means no VLAN traffic is allowed. When you say add, let's say initially you say allowed VLAN 10, you want to add one more, so you say add and then you give 20, that means VLAN 10 and 20 is gone. Removes the reverse of that, where you have VLAN 10 and 20 allowed, you just have to say remove and then you say remove 20, only 10 would be let go through, right? So this is how you do the VLAN allowed configuration. Next, we will look into the native VLAN. Now, we discussed this few times earlier. Native VLAN is the VLAN for that particular trunk which goes out as untagged, right? So if I go into a certain switch port, so let's say this is the interface where which is configured as trunk. So I say switch port trunk native VLAN and I say native VLAN 10. So what happens is now any traffic for VLAN 10 goes out of this trunk untagged, right? So it goes untagged from one end. So let's say if you go back to our packet tracer, so in this case FA0/4, I say FA0/4 switch port trunk native VLAN is 20. When 20 traffic goes out of this interface, it would go out untagged, right? Now, when that traffic comes to this switch says, okay, you're coming untagged, right? You're coming untagged. That means you're part of native VLAN. But this device has a native VLAN of 1. Now, you see the difference. 1 and 20 should not be communicating, but because of this native VLAN mismatch, there is a possibility that you could send traffic that is in VLAN 20 to a totally different VLAN. Now that's the theory part. But 802.1q encapsulation has a requirement that even the native VLAN that you have configured on the switch must match. So let's do this. Let's do this. And I'm going to say this is the command: switch port trunk native VLAN is 10. Any traffic for VLAN 10 goes out of this interface as an untagged traffic. Now when that traffic comes here, it says, okay, you're coming as an untagged traffic, right? So it says that means I must place you in VLAN 1, but VLAN 10 actually should be able to communicate with this, but because it's coming into a native VLAN of 1, it changes that VLAN and puts that traffic into VLAN 1, and hence that traffic cannot reach these ports which are part of VLAN 10. Now that's a theory part. Like I said, technically, if I make that change, you will start getting updates like this. This is CDP native VLAN mismatch. So it says native VLAN mismatch discovered on Ethernet 04 with switch fast Ethernet 0/1. That means it's telling these two ports, they're supposed to be trunks, but they're not becoming trunks because there is a mismatch of native VLANs. Right, so I think these are the information that I wanted to cover in this video. So if you have any questions, please feel free to write into me. You can visit our website nwking.org. We put workbooks for every video. So I put a new video, I will have a workbook updated there. Very soon I will start having notes there. We will have exam simulation, like a testing engine. I'm working on that now, so we'll have a testing engine very soon. And like I said, please don't forget to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube page. I hope these videos are helpful, and please share with your friends who you think would benefit with these videos. And thank you very much for all the support that you guys give us, and see you very soon. Bye bye.